do yesterday. Meanwhile, it's not overstating to say today could decide whether or not the Eagles fly all the way to the Super Bowl. We'll explain why. And then, does the coach, who always handles the questions, have any answers for his team's free fall headed into a playoff rematch with the hottest team in the league? All that and more as we get up to the right now. Here we go.
Let's go.
Our Wednesday crew reunited for the first time in a little while. Hawk is ready to go. Kmart ready to go.
These guys.
These guys are over here. Tons of football to get to. But I got not one, but two moments from the NBA. You have been. Give me the call.
Hawks don't have a timeout. Trey from midcourt to win it. Yes! He hit it! Trey Young hits a three, the buzzer!
Trey Young!
Atlanta wins the game!
My. Whoa, Trey Young!
Can you believe that?
How about this moment in a tie game?
Judge them off of what they do next. Did you expect to make that play? Yeah, I don't want you too happy. I wanted to be like, yeah, I knew it.
And he watched it.
Bye-bye, guys.
He watched it travel.
That was number one.
Yes.
How about wake-up call part two? LeBron James is 40 years old, people. Do it.
Rebound hustling is Christie. To the cutting James. With the left hand. James went in with an offhand.
Oh, my goodness.
Just cannot believe what you see in this game. Unbelievable.
Inside, he was at the little
Come on.
in the little spot right in the middle.
The man is 40 years old, Jeffrey.
He can still dunk. He's almost over 40. Yeah, right.
Nick couldn't do that on a 7-foot rim. Not you, Nick.
The play.
My bad, you're right. I let Jeff.
That was too easy.
I let Jeff sucker
too
me.
easy.
He suckered me into that.
What a dunk by LeBron.
Good job, LeBron.
Wow.
These 40-year-olds can't do that. We are impressed. My bad, Nick.
One more look. Oh, my
That was
God.
nasty. Trade hands. That was pretty sweet.
In an unrelated story, the Lakers got blown out again.
Again.
So those are where we begin. We also have a monster NBA game on the schedule tonight. We'll get Windy in to talk about that. But now, let me get to the football piece of this, and let me explain why this is so significant and outrageous, okay? So Mike McCarthy's contract with the Cowboys expires today, but the team holds exclusive negotiating rights with him through next week. On Monday, Shefty told us the Bears had sought permission to speak with McCarthy about their vacancy. I want to take you back to Sunday, following the team's season finale, when Jerry Jones very clearly said this.
Then I would say, go talk. I really would. Go talk.
So it sounds like
I just let Zeke do that.
Gotcha.
I don't want anybody here. That's not healthy to have somebody around that wants to be someplace else. Really, it's not.
Okay, so he said that very clearly.
Yeah.
If you want to, it's not healthy.
Go talk,
Go
not healthy.
talk. So that made.
He's like, I ain't scared. Go have
Your
the
Jerry Jones
conversations.
impression is very impressive, by the way.
It's really not. But that what made yesterday so outrageous when Adam Schefter tweeted this. ESPN sources tell us that the Dallas Cowboys
Don't go talk.
Don't talk. Don't talk.
Greeny.
Don't talk.
denied
Not loud
permission
talk.
to the Bears to interview their head coach, Mike McCarthy. This stopped being funny yesterday, right? Like, this is just what they're doing to him now is just flat wrong.
Dirty. And we talked about it yesterday being dirty. You have known this season was going to end this way since Dak got hurt. Whatever you thought, you knew this season was what it was. You've had this much time to evaluate the head coach of your organization who's been there 5 years. And you need an extra week to not let him go talk to some after you tell him, go talk. Go talk. No, don't go talk. You have an extra. This is absurdity beyond belief. What Jerry has done now, and again, it's the same circus that gets created, whether it's Dak's contract going to the final day, CeeDee Lamb, Micah Parsons, whatever it is, the reason this organization stays where it stays is because of this. Because when the head of the organization acts this way, everybody else follows suit. It becomes about brand instead of about business. You can't win this way.
I mean, this This means that they're resigning him, right? That's the.
Whoa. See what you're doing there? You're using something called logic. Yeah, Jerry
Not
Jones.
applicable
Jerry
here.
Jones. I mean, nothing that he's done has been consistent. There's no continuity through these decisions because yesterday he said talk, today he said don't talk. He won't offer him a contract. And the reason why no coach is like, look around the history of the league. There's been very few coaches that have ever been allowed to coach out the last year of their contract. In part because you want them to feel strong and like they're going to be there and the players to follow them, but also you don't want them to hold you hostage at the end of the season over a contract renegotiation. Like Jerry's mishandled this whole situation.
Again.
I mean, every time.
So the issue with it for me is to your point about the CeeDee Lamb going into the season, which hurt a big portion of your season and why you're in the situation you're in.
Absolutely.
The Dak Prescott, like fans having to question, is this the quarterback we need? Because if you're not excited about the decision,
That's right.
how does anybody else rally about that? And for McCarthy, it's the same thing. If you look like you're getting backed into decisions, which is what it looks like.
Yes.
It doesn't look like strong negotiating tactics. It doesn't look like you trying to gain leverage or prove a contract. It looks like you're unsure.
That's exactly right.
And for fans and people in the organization, that's hard to get excited about.
Kmart, get in here.
I got nothing. You know why? Because what we're all saying is that nothing Jerry does is consistent. And what I found even funnier listening to Jerry's presser was he said, I'll follow in terms of McCarthy, I'll follow the same kind of time frame that I've done in the past. And then he says, but I can tell you the past is not necessarily consistent in terms of a time frame. What?
Double talk.
What? And here's the thing. It's almost like Jerry is, unfortunately, I hate to do the relationship thing. Jerry is that person who is not sure about you, but doesn't want to see you with somebody else. I mean, I don't know what that's like personally, but I can tell you, it sounds like it sucks, you know? And that's the unfortunate thing because you want to know as a head coach that you are wanted in this building and that the organization believes you can turn this thing around.
You create individuals in your locker room because of that, right? Because it's going to be whoever Jerry's favorite is of the moment. And the problem is that when you're the owner and the GM, if you heard a GM talking like this, the GM would lose his job because the owner's like, we can't follow the pattern of behavior that you're exemplifying. But it's the owner / GM that continues to hurt his. Even talking about the Derrick Henry not signing that, I'm surprised our team's not as good as. No one else in the world is. How can you be surprised if you're putting the roster together?
And lest anyone should be wondering, well, they have an exclusive negotiating window with him till next week. What's wrong with him, just taking advantage of something that they've negotiated? This is not a business like any other. There are 32 of these jobs.
That's right.
There is a clear, unspoken understanding that if you're not hiring someone or if you're not giving them the job, you allow them the opportunity to go out and seek
interviews are happening.
And the timing of it is exactly right. It is critical.
Interviews are literally
every day that goes by damages his chance of getting just flat wrong.
And to prepare for these interviews.
That's exactly right.
The amount of preparation you need going in, you don't just walk in the door like, hey, I'm Mike McCarthy. You need to research that team, that organization, that roster, create a vision for this new organization that tells them, okay, this is the guy we can now entrust to steer us in the right direction. And he's in limbo.
And I'm going to give him, even if we give him the benefit of the doubt of saying, hey, you want to retain McCarthy and you don't want him to go to Chicago, like we talked about earlier, it doesn't come across that way.
Right.
It looks like the fact that Chicago was interested forced you into being like, oh, I don't want to lose this guy, which again, lacks confidence in your decision making. You don't have a real strategy. That's what it looks like on the surface.
There's some things that I think that you give up. Like, there's trade-offs in everything in life. And, like, if you're going to fly on a private jet and own a football team and be a super billionaire, there's some things that you kind of have to give up. And one of those is the ability, I think, to be this outspoken, off-the-cuff, chitty-chatty type of guy. Like, you don't get to be that. That's fine. Give me your private jet. I'll get off TV, and I'll never speak again. That's all good.
I'm with you. I'll do it too.
Yeah, Jeff, come with me.
I'm with you.
But, like, when you do that, what you have to understand is when you're leading this team, there's some privileges that you give up. You gain a lot more privileges, but we've seen it over the last couple of days. A lot of these guys don't seem to want to give up those specific freedoms, and it's hurting their team.
Well, no, look, like one owner after another has come out and said things that just are so awkward and ridiculous this week. But forgetting that, there's always been sort of a benign, humorous element to the things that Jerry Jones has done. And if he was hurting anyone, he was generally only hurting himself.
Right.
In this case, it's bordering on mean-spirited. Like, there's something about this that feels completely wrong.
It's just a consistent theme. We talk about the Dak, what's happening, then we wait till week 1 of the season for him and CD to get signed. And Jerry has said, I'm all in. Enough for you. Like, he's defiant.
Absolutely.
And what you wanted to see from Jerry after this season is some perspective, some growth.
That's exactly
I understand how I am, handcuffing my team because of how I don't spend and when I choose to spend, but instead it's more of a defiance.
So we all acknowledge that he didn't build the roster that was going to be successful this year. And then he holds the coaches and players accountable for not having success without building that roster.
Right.
And then you follow it up by using what you've negotiated in the contract in order to limit Mike McCarthy's ability to go elsewhere.
Exactly.
Like that. I think that's the point that Greeny keeps coming back to, that this doesn't even seem to make any bit of sense other than to hurt Mike McCarthy.
Yes.
Like, if you want me, sign me. If you don't want me, let me go somewhere else. And it's just like, nah, sit there.
And then
Sit there.
That's right.
And then when all the jobs are closed up, he's gonna be like, I don't know.
Right.
Yeah,
I'm good.
I would expect
the mean-spirited part that you're talking about, though, even with the radio that he did, this has become common for Jerry, which we have never seen. I mean, I've dealt with Jerry. We've dealt with him in negotiation. He has always been. We had great relationship with him. I think he was legitimate when what he said. He did all of those things. This year, I don't know if it's because of the losing, but it has felt mean-spirited. And even in that interview, you saw the countenance on his face change. This wasn't like the joking around in jest kind of thing. This was hey, it's not healthy. But what he's doing isn't healthy. That's you're in a position of power. What you're doing is unhealthy because what you're doing to Mike McCarthy. That's the part. Yep. And now we got to be up here and defend Mike McCarthy, which is
that's the worst part.
Like, dang.
Well, it's like, it's in the contract, but just because it's legal doesn't make it right. And I think that's the conversation.
The contract thing, come
on. The Cooper Rush thing on Sunday.
Oh, yes. That was the other thing, yes.
Threatened to fire the
radio host.
Guys.
So this is
took Cooper Rush money.
It's beneath a person of his stature, and he's a person for whom I have extraordinary respect. Person enjoyed watching all these years, and I hope they do something different here. All right, coming up, it is not overstating to say that today could decide whether or not the Eagles fly all the way to the Super Bowl. I'm not kidding. We'll explain exactly why this day is so critical. Plus, does the coach who always handles the questions have any answers for his team's free fall headed into a playoff rematch with the hottest team in the league? All that and more is on the way. We're just getting warmed up on a Wednesday. Get up on ESPN. Or not.
Believe it.
Believe it. Kmart, let's start with you. If I said the Chiefs are going to achieve the first Super Bowl three-peat, believe it or not?
Greeny, believe it, because I am not going to be the person that counts out Patrick Mahomes. Listen, we had a lot of questions about their offense, how it looked, their offensive line protection. They've gotten better. This offense looks better. So until somebody knocks them off,
Hard to pick against them. I'm with you. Neek, next up.
I believe it. I know it's a two-stage maneuver. The re-signing Sam Darnold, I believe, is going to happen. What they do with J.J. McCarthy is a little bit more up in the air, but I think they might end up needing to trade him so that they can fill out the roster with rookies that are cheaper to support the contract that they might end up offering Sam Darnold.
They might get a very high pick for him if they're able to do it. Finally, Jeffrey, to you. If I said the Steelers will trade their legendary coach Mike Tomlin if they go one and done in these playoffs, believe it or not?
Not. Listen, Mike Tomlin, 12 of his 18 years he has exceeded win totals and what expectation is. He has gone to the playoffs. They have not been good in the playoffs, but they have not been favored in forever. He is 7-4 when he's favored. He's 1-6 in an underdog. They've been the 7th seed the last 2 times. Again, he's played this team. No one expected this team to be where they are right now. He played it again. I don't think Pittsburgh gives up on Mike Tomlin.
Let me be very clear about why we're asking this question. In case you just tuned in and you're like, why the hell are you asking that? Shefty reported on Sunday that there is an expectation around the league that teams will call the Steelers during this offseason, essentially right now, to see if they would entertain the possibility of trading Mike Tomlin. We have seen coaches traded before. Kmart, my insider extraordinaire, this is your game this weekend.
Is a topic always of conversation is that even Pittsburgh fans, in that area, are over Mike Tomlin. There are Steelers fans who are like, we want to move on. We don't win enough. And we have gotten complacent with this the 500 record over the
team.
years.
Yeah.
Which boggles my mind because I don't believe that the Steelers would trade Mike Tomlin, but I do believe teams should try.
Yeah.
Because given all the accolades that you mentioned, like I understand this is a team that if they're one and done. Mike Tomlin again, unfortunately, and I think it really is unfortunate because people in Pittsburgh just have gotten sort of, trying to figure out the quarterback situation, and Kenny Pickett obviously didn't help this.
Right. So look, he's been there 18 years, and that is an extraordinary and abnormally long tenure. Now, the Steelers are an organization that believes in the people that they bring in to their everlasting credit. I say it all the time. They have had 3 head coaches since 1969.
Yeah.
Is it possible that it would be in everyone's best interest, though, after 18 years, for a new voice there and maybe for him? Look what happened to Andy Reid. Andy Reid was in Philly forever. He had a lot of success, didn't get them over the hump. Tomlin has actually won a Super Bowl, of course. I'm sure he didn't want to get fired in Philadelphia. He got a job 5 minutes later, and look at him now in Kansas City. It might not be the worst thing that could happen to Mike Tomlin.
No, I think that for Mike Tomlin, picking a new situation somewhere where the offensive side of the ball is a little more stable at quarterback and figured out might be great for Mike Tomlin. But I think we assume, because there are examples where it's worked out, we assume that it will for him and it will for the Steelers. I think if we actually think about it, the overwhelming likelihood is that they
it takes to see if the Steelers would be willing to. Talking yesterday, the heck out of the way.
But again, think about this. If you're Mike Tomlin, what would be the advantage of you're going to face Detroit, Minnesota, and Green Bay 6 times a year. You already know your coverage. You know. It's just different.
Mike Tomlin don't run from smoke.
Yeah.
Well, he not scared of none of that. And if I'm Mike Tomlin, I'm gonna say like, I go where I'm celebrated, not tolerated. And these are privileged organizational problems because they're so used to winning. It's not crazy to think that Mike Tomlin could thrive somewhere else.
Absolutely. Would you like your quarterback to be Caleb Williams and try and develop him, or would you like your quarterback to be
Nice catch. This is Hawkins.
Caught. Hawkins.
What a spectacular catch.
He guarded 2 people. Come on, man. He's getting yacked. This is my domain. It's a 10 and might be the best catch of the entire NFL season.
All right, Hawk has the best catches in a feature that we call Receive It. Take it away.
All right, starting up, we're going with the Get Your Money Catch of 2024.
Ooh.
My guy, Mike Evans. Look, it's not a super special catch, but why it's special is it's worth $3 million, right? And the other part of this that I love so much is that everybody on the team was so in on him getting 1,000 yards, and I don't think it was about the money. I think it was about the record. I think it was about the personal achievement. Absolutely. And for some reason, there's this war on people having personal achievements.
Yeah.
Before Devon Valet pulls this in. This is special. Look at his concentration. Boom, boom, get the feet in, and you get the tub. There's nothing like cheap touchdowns in Week 18 to put onto the stat sheet.
The unis are nice.
Look at that. Oh, and the throwbacks.
Bottom of the hour, there's my favorite photo.
It's a new year, guys. We need a new shock.
Well, you got to make a new face. Here we go. Would Kmart be shocked? Would you be shocked if Tyreek Hill played for the Cowboys next season?
Wow, Greeny, I would be shocked because if Jerry Jones couldn't afford the $8 million a year for Derrick Henry, how is he going to get Tyreek Hill? Like, what are we talking about?
Cash strap.
We bring it up because Micah Parsons was trying to recruit him.
Yeah, I get why Micah wants him for sure. I get that.
We'll see. Next one. Would Kmart be shocked if Josh Allen and the Bills are upset by Denver this weekend?
Okay. Not shocked, but very, very surprised. Here's why. And I say not shocked because we've seen everything happen in the NFL, so nothing shocks me truly. But people are sleeping on the Broncos, particularly that defense led by Patrick Tate. So when I look at this Bills matchup, I think people really need to focus on Denver. What?
The definition of shocked is surprise.
Man,
I was
Let's say.
okay.
We all understand.
That is
I mean, I don't think it's. Can we change this to impossible?
okay.
Impossible.
Martin be impossible?
Next, and here's the most important one. Kmart, would you be shocked if Jalen Hurts doesn't play against Green Bay?
Okay, my answer is going to be not shocked, but very surprised. But I'm going to say, I'm trying to split hairs here. Listen, here's the important thing. The Eagles waived Ian Book, right, their quarterback, which means that they have Jalen Hurts, Kenny Pickett, and Tanner McKee. They've got all three of them left, which signals that we could see Jalen Hurts this weekend. That's been the most pressing information as far as like gauging whether he'll be good or not.
Let's make sure everyone understands exactly what we're dealing with here and why I said today's the most important day. There is a very specific group of steps, 5 steps, that a player has to go through in order to pass through concussion protocol. And any time that a player fails one of them, he has to go all the way back to the beginning. If he's on the practice field today, then I think the overwhelming likelihood is that Jalen Hurts winds up playing. Although if he wakes up in the morning tomorrow feeling any semblance of symptoms, he goes all the way back to stage 1. So we are living in a world, guys, where Jalen Hurts might not play. This is not an ankle. This is not an elbow. This is a concussion.
And even if he does play, we still don't know. You know what I mean? Like, you still don't know how he...
Well, what are the limitations? Yeah. You guys were talking about this morning and the difference in the way they might handle the game.
Yeah, because Jalen Hurts is their quarterback that they want to go through the entire playoffs. And when you have a concussion, obviously it gets easier to then have the repeat symptoms of that concussion. So they aren't going to call this game the way that they would call a normal game. We see that with any injured quarterback. You take certain things out of the playbook. You're a little bit more hesitant. And it's particularly interesting for this team because they are very much predicated on his running ability and the tush push ability, which is like you put your head in that, in like that 4th down in the red zone. Those are key places for this team to have success, and they are all dependent on Jalen Hurts' athleticism.
Yeah, you can't protect him in the tush push, right? Somebody's going to come over the top. He's going to take shots on that in the red zone when he does the zone read and has to pull the ball. Himbo sent me a stat that under Sirianni, Hurts has more than twice as many 1-yard touchdown runs, 33, as any other player in the NFL. He had 11 this year, which leads the league again. That's a massive contribution to your offense. Not only the fourth down conversions, you're literally playing a different game than other teams can play. Because it gets to 4th and 1, no matter where you're on the field, you still feel like we're going to go get it. Yep. That gives you an extra down, right? It's kind of the way Detroit likes to play. That aggressiveness when you have a quarterback coming off a concussion where symptoms have lasted since December 22. That's a big deal. Like I'm not trying to minimize and act like he can't play. Right. But even if he does play, you're concerned.
The coordinator is thinking
that in his head because you got a lot. You're trying to win a Super Bowl, not just this game.
It's going to be tough to call plays to limit Jalen Hurts' legs to save a concussion. If it's a knee where it's like, hey, you're not as fast, which also opens you up to more injury or continual injury on something. The concussions is such a 100%. If you're susceptible to getting those symptoms coming back fast, that means you're not healed and you're not ready. And I understand the world that we're living in. So this is probably more on Jalen Hurts to protect himself in those runs. Go down sooner. Don't try to fight. Don't wait. But we have to be able to get you running on the outside for this offense to operate, and that worries me.
But that's the 4th and 1, and that's the tush push concern because you can't protect yourself going over. It's a possibility.
Yeah, to your point, though, they have some options in their offense that it requires his ability to run or at least threaten it for this offense to work at its best.
And they always say it's 1st and 9 for them as opposed to everybody else. Maybe they don't get to live in that world this weekend against Green Bay. Much more on the NFL as we go, but don't forget tomorrow, college football's Final Four.
Here we go.
There we go. Touchdown. The Irish have done it. Buckeyes on fire. What an all-time classic.
The college football playoff semifinals begin tomorrow and continue Friday.
Heather and Sir Paul are up early with us, getting us ready for the college football semifinals beginning tomorrow. Let's dive right in here. Paul, I'm looking for X factors from you. It will begin with Notre Dame. Who is the X factor for the Irish tomorrow night?
It is Riley Leonard, the quarterback. He has been very good all year. That's why Notre Dame is playing in such a late
game, but he needs to be better. He was serviceable against Georgia. He needs to be great against Penn State, and I think, quite frankly, he will be.
Penn State has a 2-day advantage in rest in this game, Heather. How much of a factor is that tomorrow night?
It's so slight that if they were to lose this game, it should not be an excuse. If Notre Dame loses this game, it's because Penn State's defense squashes their running game, which they rely on so heavily. Marcus Freeman said this is a regular game week for them. The only thing they lose is a little bit of mental prep.
That's right. It's Thursday to Thursday. It's not as though they were playing on a literal short week. Paul, let's go to the other side of it then. Penn State, who is the X factor for the Nittany Lions?
It's Abdul Carter, and he is such an outstanding player, but he has been injured. He suffered an arm injury against Boise State. He's the edge rusher, and they need him desperately in this game. James Franklin did not really address the issue. He will be the key tomorrow night.
He's a player who is a likely top 5 pick coming up in the draft. So, Heather, let's talk about the coach of the Nittany Lions. They call him Big Game James, and they don't mean it in a good way. What would it mean for him if he wins this game tomorrow night?
Well, this is the biggest game of his career, and it's a chance to not silence his critics who wonder if he can win the big game, but it's at least a chance to close the gap with the elite coaches who can. When you look at his record against AP top 5 opponents, by comparison, when you look at Kirby Smart and Nick Saban and Urban Meyer, they all have winning records as head coaches against top 5 teams. So this is an opportunity for him to at least start to close that gap.
Eligible to be in the draft. Not only can't he can't be in next year's draft. That's how young he is. Heather, there's been so much talk about what would constitute a success for Ohio State in these playoffs. They've looked so good. Would it be a failure? Would their season be a failure if they lose this game?
Absolutely not. Paul and I sat here on this very show and said Ryan Day needs to make a deep run into the college football playoff to compensate for that loss to Michigan, and he has. This counts. That being said, they should win this game. Ohio State, anyone who's watched them right now, they look like the best team in the country, and they can prove it.
And they have to do it against Texas, the last team standing. Paul, from your beloved SEC, who is the X factor for the Longhorns?
It's Gunnar Helm, the tight end. He was very big in the overtime win against Arizona State. He needs to be even larger in this game. A lot of question marks about Quinn Ewers, but Gunnar Helm is his go-to guy on the side, and I think he'll utilize him effectively in this game.
Heather, let's talk about the coaches. Ryan Day, there's been so much talk about him all through, basically going back to the moment they lost that Michigan game, maybe before. Steve Sarkisian on the other side for Texas. Which coach do you think has more at stake here?
It's 100% Sark, because he's carrying the banner not just for his program, but for the entire SEC. Now, Feinbaum, the SEC king, might disagree with this, but look, it's not a great year for the SEC. When Alabama and Georgia are not playing well, and they have not been great, Alabama's not even in this conversation, the entire league took a hit. And I think it's fair, too, to criticize it a little bit. And so Sark, to me, is under pressure to carry the banner for the entire conference.
Paul, you don't look like you agree.
Well, I understand what she said, even though I choose not to listen. But I still think Ryan Day has some pressure. Now, I agree with Heather completely. I don't think the weight of the world is on his shoulders anymore. But he has the best team. He has the most talented team. A lot of people have already given him the trophy, so I do think there is pressure there. But Sark is also a very successful coach, and a loss here wouldn't really hurt him, but it would hurt the SEC.
All right, we will see. Guys, awesome. Thank you. We'll keep you close by as we keep working our way towards the college football playoff semifinals. Tomorrow night, Notre Dame and Penn State, Capital One Orange Bowl. Then Friday, it's Ohio State and Texas in the Goodyear Cotton Bowl Classic. Both games kick off at 7:30 Eastern. Could be one of the great two-day stretches in the history of the sport. Meanwhile, coming up, will Mr. Rogers be playing in a new neighborhood next season? Wait until you hear where Dominique thinks Aaron could go next. This would be fascinating, and it could happen. It's next. teams are playing, so there are 24 units on the field, offense and defense. Which of the 24 is the best one?
I think it's the Eagles' defense. Their flexibility and versatility under Vic Fangio and their talent from every different level. They've address their linebacker issues. If you remember at the end of last year, the linebackers couldn't cover anyone or tackle anyone. That Arizona game stands out in my mind. Right now, they don't miss tackles. They cover everything. And their young secondary, their corners give them the ability to play man, cover 4, cover 6, and Jalen Carter up front is a problem. This defense is really, really good.
See them maybe up against the Lions offense in a conference final would be something else. All right, the next one. I love this question. I'm looking for the next Sam Darnold, or you could even put Baker Mayfield in this. Who's the next guy who was drafted in the first round who's been sort of given up on, who you think will have a renaissance at some point?
So most of the questions have to be a first-round pick.
Yeah.
And so we're looking at Zach Wilson or Mac Jones. Those are the guys who are going to be available who are also first-round picks. It's a real hard thing to figure out, but I would argue maybe Zach Wilson, because if you remember, his arm talent is incredible. He's a very young player, and the Jets organization is a place where it's really hard to succeed. So I could put a story together that supports Zach Wilson in a new situation, a little older, better surroundings. He becomes the guy.
It's hard to argue.
I mean, it's like
it could happen, and if it does, I'm telling you right now, I'm going to be in a bad mood. Let's then get to the man who had to replace Zach Wilson because he was so incredibly bad as a Jet, and that's Aaron Rodgers. Here's the final question.
Right.
Is he a starting quarterback week 1 of next season, and if so, where?
These are some tough answer to questions. I think it's most likely that he's not a starting quarterback, but I do think that there's one situation that's a little bit interesting. If his situation in the locker room is tough to deal with, I think going to one of the strongest locker rooms and the best-led teams in football that bring Devontae and Aaron Rodgers to Pittsburgh. Whatever locker room antics that you may think exist elsewhere, they die as soon as they get to Mike Tomlin's doorstep.
Get the crew in here for this.
Yeah.
Let's remind everyone.
You like it?
These guys love each other. Aaron Rodgers and Mike Tomlin. I brought up this moment a million times. This time he called a quick timeout. Tomlin called a quick timeout that caught Aaron Rodgers sort of unaware, and they gave each other these looks. Do you remember that? The legendary look? Here it is. He looks at it. He gives a little tip of the cap. He gives him a little something. Like, there's definitely a little something between these two guys.
I think everybody's going to come in here and rain on my parade. Is that what's going to happen?
No, I love it.
Oh, really?
But I love it just because I want to see Aaron Rodgers next year. Because Aaron Rodgers plus Mike Tomlin, Steelers need a quarterback. But they have Russell Wilson, an older quarterback, who, people wondered, is he on the decline? Now we're going to bring in an even older one.
Jeff has this very skeptical look on his face.
No chance.
I just want the cinema.
All the love you think Tomlin's showing Aaron Rodgers. There's a difference in love and in competitive nature of tip of the cap. I just got you. You got me. You think Tomlin just watched what happened in New York? He's like, oh yeah, come on down. We'll both be out of town next year.
He saw what happened in Denver. He saw what happened in Chicago. He's had worse options than this.
Russell Wilson didn't run Sean Payton out. He just didn't play good enough for Sean Payton. The whole New York Jets organization blew up, Greedy.
Russell Wilson got the previous coach.
Context, but I do not like Aaron Rodgers playing for the Pittsburgh Steelers. But as I thought about it in the break, actually, Nick, you might have converted me. If he comes with Devontae Adams,
there we go. Oh, now this is because you love Devontae Adams.
Okay, maybe.
Final word, Kmart.
George Pickens, Devontae Adams.
Come on, Dad.
Aaron Rodgers, Mike Tomlin. That's cinema.
It's fun.
Make it happen.
It's more football as we go. But let's go to the NBA, where it is a huge night. Put your fingers in the air, people, and wave them around like you just don't care. Windy is here for the Windy Watch. Windy, let's start in L.A. We opened the show with LeBron James at the age of 40 with one of the great dunks of the NBA season so far. So as we continue to enjoy that, I ask you,
on the court. Greeny, when he's been on the court, it's all about trying to keep Zion healthy and build momentum for next year.
and then finally, staying out west, the Suns continue to spiral. They lost to the Hornets. Could Bradley Beal be on the move?
Sounds like no. His agent, Mark Bartelstein, told me there's been no discussions either with the Suns or any other team about Bradley Beal waiving his no-trade clause. The reason that's become an issue over the last couple of days, the Heat said they were going to trade Jimmy Butler. The Suns are known to be interested, according to Mark Bartelstein.